Want to build your career with CMI confidence? Well, it all starts with the tools at your fingertips. CMI creates workplaces full of inspiring leaders with its on-demand resources, network of mentors, and industry-leading accreditations. Search CMI Confidence today.
This session is recorded and will be available on the CMI website and YouTube channel. Join the conversation by using the live chat box for your questions and comments. We'll answer as many as we can during the Q&A. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Investing in Workplace Wellness, a digital event hosted by the CMI Wales Board. My name is Michael Bolt and I am an Events Delivery Manager at CMI. Please do join in the conversation by using the live chat box, posting any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can during the Q&A. So without any further delay, I'd like to hand over to Neil Reynolds, who is our Regional Stakeholder Lead from the CMI Wales Board, to begin today's event.
Thank you, Michael, for that introduction. Firstly, myself, I'm a chartered professional in civil engineering, environment and management with over 40 years of experience in engineering and the construction sectors. I now serve several boards in the private, public and the third sector, both as chair and a non-executive director, including a volunteer with CMI Wales, the Wales board. When not working, you'll find me out cycling, which I use for my own mental well-being, let's say. And I also use it as a platform to raise money for cancer charities. Just to frame the discussion today before I introduce our speakers today, ensuring your people are well supported is the right thing to do, but it's also a smart business move. Employee well-being is not just a nice to have, but a critical factor in achieving and maintaining elevated levels of performance across various aspects of business. Companies that invest in the well-being of their employees often reap the benefits of improved productivity, reduced costs, and a more positive corporate culture. Our panelists today come from startups and corporates and have not only discovered the work-life balance, but also embarked on careers dedicated to enhancing health and well-being. Their mission, to empower both employees and employers to elevate performance and achieve organizational success through well-being. Today, we will explore how a healthy and happy workforce can significantly contribute to the success and sustainability of an organization in several ways, such as productivity, retention, morale and engagement, innovation, team collaboration, reputation, customer satisfaction, and long-term sustainability of a business. We will hopefully discuss and debate the multifaceted benefits and considerations associated with investing in the physical and mental well-being of employees. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce your panelists. I must say a really fascinating bunch of people, and I think be ready to be inspired by their personal stories, career journeys, and learning on this important subject of well-being. So firstly, Luc Bistol. Luc is founder of Muscle Coach and Master Your Life, a health and lifestyle specialist who has been coaching clients all over the world for the past 8 years. He helps business leaders from total burnout to creating a full life outside of work. Welcome, Luc.
Thank you for the introduction, Neil.
Sharon Marsh. Sharon has a long career with major global consultancy and construction firms and is now working for Mace. But she has also set up Quantum Heart Life alongside her corporate career with a focus on consciousness and well-being. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, Neil. Thank you for the great introduction. Great to be here today.
Thank you. Simon Hampel. It's hard to put actually Simon's career into words. He is someone that has gone through a boom and bust journey and personal transformation. Now Simon is founder of Sarsen Limited. Sarsen exists to create a greater sense of connection with ourselves and the bigness of life. Welcome, Simon.
Hi, Neil. Hi, everybody. Lovely to see you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Kath Austin. Kath is a member and companion of CMI for many years. and is currently both the chair of the CMI Wales Cymru board and chair of CMI regional boards. Kath has a diverse experience of leadership from global to small business and has worked internationally across sectors including hospitality, finance and airlines, including operating Pizza Hut restaurants UK and Itsu franchises. Welcome, Kath.
Hi, Neil. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I have to say, Luke, I really admire the fact, firstly, you're standing up. I think I might try and join you later on.
Energy flowing.
But that's a good point. I think, I normally find also as a presenter on the stage, it's very often a lot easier when you're actually standing up or walking around.
It's true.
But anyway, let me, well, again, welcome again. And I'm actually going to start with Luke. And I think, if each of you can also give some bit of a personal story here, would be very interesting for the audience, I think. So Luke, tell us about the career leading up to Muscle Coach and Master Your Life. What was your background and where did the idea come from?
Well, happy to be here, guys. I'm really excited to share this personal journey because if I go back to my childhood, I was always, as you can tell, standing up, high energy. And the first thing that was at my feet as a kid was a football. I love David Beckham, again, just with the recent documentary out there. I was obsessed with free kick taking. I always wanted to be outside. I was the typical kid. Dad saying, Luke, come home when it's dark. I was always outside and I just got passionate. I was addicted to bettering myself, challenging myself. And I went into professional football. I got a scholarship. I was all on the way to becoming a professional footballer. And my dreams, basically, not to go into too much depth, just got crushed through my own, I suppose, personal mental health issues that I kind of got with the pressure of being in a very high-end, sport, which I'm sure a lot can relate to, with a lot of testing, data collecting, body fat measurements, you name it. When you don't start in the 11, you get a little bit of banter, all that kind of stuff. I let it get to me. And what that caused was issues with myself. So I lacked self-belief. I had that fear of rejection. And as a result of that, my anger was taken out on working harder. I wasn't working smarter. So what I did is I started hiring specialists away from the football environment. I hired a free kick specialist because I loved free kicks. I wanted to master that. So I invested in myself. And then I also invested in a strength and conditioning coach who'd worked with the likes of Ronaldo, Roy Keane. And I've been around these great athletes. And I was an absorber. I wanted to consume, but also implement all of their expertise and put it in. But however, unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. So football come to an abrupt end at 19. And again, I think when it's been your life and then it just suddenly stops, I think it can be hard to digest on what's next. So I was lost. And my dad said, Luke, come and work with me. My dad's got his own business in engineering. I'm not a hands-on person. I'll be honest. I'm really, really not. I'm just a good communicator. And again, it was working out where my skill set was lying. So I went to Madrid. I lived in Madrid for 6 months learning Spanish. I know we talked about this behind the scenes. And I was a part-time teaching assistant to earn some money to play semi-professional in Madrid. Again, that didn't work out. I went on trial at Motherwell in Scotland. So as you can tell, I'd given it my all. But they had to become that stage where it wasn't meant to be. So I decided, where can I go? What am I enjoying? So the gym became my place of worship. It was like my church, to be honest. It was my escape. It was my place where I really enjoyed just letting my emotions out with lifting weights, with increasing my body confidence, as that's what I suffered with, again, with the sport of image. It's a lot of image. So yeah, basically from there, I became a personal trainer, and then I wanted to get away from my roots. I needed to reinvent myself. That was the biggest thing. I lack confidence. I lack self-belief. So I thought, you know what? If nobody knows who I am and they're not going to judge me, then that's the best place to be. So then I traveled on cruise ships. I did that for 2.5 years. So that led me into Muscle Coach and Master Your Life, because I felt that from my own trapped, lost identity, the only way that I found myself, again, was having accountability, reaching out for help, being honest and vulnerable about my actual issues that I was facing. Rather than doing it on my own, I felt the importance of having 2 minds is better than 1, 2 pairs of eyes are better than 1. So with Master Your Life, I want to help business leaders like myself, because I fell into the trap of spinning multiple plates, feeling stressed, overworked. COVID shut my business down overnight. I had to reinvent. I had to shift the goalposts a little bit, and that's led me into that. So I want to help business leaders from total burnout to help them create a fun life outside of work. I felt myself not doing anything other than work. That was it. I just 7 days a week, 90 to 100-hour weeks, burnt out, trying to build a team. So yeah, through my own personal experiences, that's what's brought me to where I am today, I suppose.
No, thank you, Luke, for that. It's a great introduction. And when I think of one of my sons, I think his place of worship is also the gym. So there's a lot that follow that path, I think. If I may move on to Sharon, can you maybe share a bit of a personal journey on how you started Quantum Heart Life while maintaining your day job? And I think what motivated you to take that dual commitment? And I think what is your mission and purpose behind Quantum Heart Life? And how does that align to your career goals and aspirations?
Yeah, sure. So Quantum Heart Life is really a seed that has been germinating for a long time, and really the next step on a journey that probably started 15 years ago. So I guess my personal story, a bit like Luke says, you know, I'd not long moved to London. I was loving an international career, which I still do today, traveling the world, working on really cool programs for really great clients with great teams of people, but working really, really long hours. So quite often working late in the evening, mostly working over weekends, and generally not taking very good care of myself, living out of a suitcase, probably not eating healthy, probably a story that sounds familiar to a lot of us on the call today. And so it really wasn't that long before my health actually took a bit of a knock. So I started to have all of those symptoms of chronic fatigue. I was actually passing out on the way to work in the morning. And I really had that sense of surviving and not really thriving and loving life, of never really feeling well. So I went for a series of medical tests. I visited a number of consultants. And really the conversation, I remember it was all over the period of 3 months. And in that 3 months, through seeing 3 different specialists, the message, the underlying theme was really the same, which was if you want to live a long and happy life, then you're going to need to make some changes to how you're living your life. I was probably in my mid-30s at this point. And it's not a very easy thing to hear when you're under that spell of you need to work really hard to be successful, and when you're surrounded by people in your life, whether it's colleagues, peers, actually friends as well, who have that same work ethic. I was also getting really frustrated because I couldn't really get the answers that I needed from the medical profession. You want to have that quick turnaround and be feeling well again. So I started looking for alternative ways of healing myself better. Firstly, I got introduced to a number of different complementary therapies like kinesiology, looking at nutritional ways of starting to feel better, which started to help, I have to say. And then I did a number of coaching programs that I got introduced to, where I spent about 3 or 4 months going through different programs. I live in London, so a lot of these amazing resources are available to you. And it wasn't long really before the ancient wisdoms of yoga and meditation started to call my name, and I started to be really curious and learn about that. And actually last year just graduated as a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher. And also I started to have this fascination for energy healing. And there's lots of different modalities of energy healing. The ones that I've probably done the most study in is around Reiki, sound medicine, Chinese meridians, using yin yoga, which I'm also a teacher in. So in short, every step that I took led to another step, and it was like following that trail of breadcrumbs. So each step of the way, I also started to feel a lot better, and I was really trying to feel into what the next decision would be with regards to the stuff that I was learning about, all this really great, fascinating stuff alongside my day job. And I was beginning to see that there was this whole new world opening up in front of me, a new way of seeing things, of believing, of being, of connecting and growing and interacting with people around me. And it was really starting to have an impact on the teams that I was working with as well. And because I could see the benefits, I was becoming really passionate about the benefits. I was starting to share it with the people I was working with my friends, my colleagues, my mentees, really informally, to be honest with you. But then in the spring this year, I had a really close and dear friend of mine actually died of cancer. And in one of our last conversations, she said, "You know what, Sharon?" Sorry, I'm getting a bit tearful. It's time. You have to lean in and start sharing this with people and encourage them to take more care of themselves in the corporate space. And so that's really where Quantum Heart Life was born, which is, it's still very much at the start of its journey. I'm sure it's going to evolve over time, but the purpose at this point is really simple. It's to encourage people to step into more self-care and to start to be curious about consciousness. And actually, with time, to encourage corporates, I think, to do the same. I think consciousness for many is a concept that's shrouded in a lot of mystery, and I'm sure Simon is going to step in and tell us more. But I don't think it has to be that way. I think in its simplest state, it's just that reconnection with ourselves. In a world where we're really obsessed with what happens outside of us, it's about coming back into us and actually starting to connect more with our heart, not our head, and to follow those things that make us feel good. And I think there's a lot of conscious practices out there that help us connect with that, that really are all about our own personal well-being at our heart. And it's trying to encourage people through this platform to actually find the one that works for them by sharing with them ones that I am learning about with inspirational resources I'm finding, just to encourage people to have a go, to find the thing that helps them bring them back to themselves, to help them start to think about what their personal well-being is and to find their joy. And, I've witnessed myself the change in teams in the workspace when they start to connect with their own consciousness and their own well-being, and how through having a conscious check-in at the beginning of a meeting, you create within that meeting so much more connection between the individuals in that meeting, more compassion, more collaboration, more looking after each other, and actually ultimately better results. So I think, I've got a way to go with Quantum Heart Life. It's just the seed of something, but I'm really excited about how it can evolve. And it's just all really about reminding us that we have a choice around well-being, and there's lots of practices out there that hopefully I'll inspire people to start to look into and take on board and have a go at.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm going to come back with a follow-up question later, but if I can move on to Simon. To be honest, I personally struggled to understand what Sarsen does. Okay, and I was on your last call too, in the field of consciousness and self-awareness, and I understand, that started with a personal transformation. Can you maybe pinpoint the moments that have brought this awareness? And I think all starting with losing everything.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Noel. And wow, Luke and Sharon, I really enjoyed listening to your stories. I've got lots of questions too, I'm allowed, Neil.
Of course.
Lucky me, in my 20s, everything I touched turned to gold. And I just had a successful journey for about 11 years. I built businesses that ended up having offices all over the world: London, New York, Monaco, Sydney, Vancouver. And I lost it all when I was 33. I'm 55 now, I get a sense of perspective. And when it all went wrong, and that's a long story over a long drink for everyone. But I literally lost everything. And in fact, so much so that I left and I moved to Spain to get better. I wanted to go somewhere where I could sort of lick my wounds. I felt guilty and shamed. I had an awful lot of money, and I'd been given money by venture capital funds and friends and family, as I built this thing up, and I had to face everyone and say, I'm sorry, I've lost it. And my amazing teams that were working for me, who all had their own lives and were reliant upon salaries and the like, it was incredibly hard to confront that failure. And would you believe it? I moved to Madrid, Luke, and I got mugged within 3 days. And it's like, I thought, what else is being stripped from me? And I ended up, by accident, I was sitting, talk about leading from the heart here, Sharon. I was sitting at a train station in Madrid thinking I have to go somewhere else in Spain. And this very smiley lady walked up the platform, and I thought, I want what she has. She looks happy. I'm feeling so sad. So I grabbed her by the leg. I'm sorry to say, I was sitting on the ground feeling very low. And she looked down at me and I said, do you speak any English? Because I spoke no Spanish. She said, yeah, I'm German. I said, oh, well, Germans speak great English. And she laughed. And I said, where have you come from? She said, Sevilla. And I said, what's that like? She said, warm, beautiful, romantic, and cheap. I never saw her again. But I got to Seville, and within a day, I got a job, a place to stay, and a course in Spanish. Isn't that amazing? Like, it opened itself up. And I had a year in Seville learning Spanish and working on table. I earned in a year what I used to pay myself in a week. So that was a lesson about resource, about money, about trust. I had nothing. I had to basically trust life to emerge. And just quickly, I could talk for hours, but the next 20 odd years of my life, I realized I've moved in a variety of directions. So I started by running and leading my own businesses. I got used to being in charge and making decisions and helping empower people. The next phase after Seville, I spent about 10 years running international NGOs. I turned left. Somehow that came into my life. Initially going off and doing amazing explorations around the world, leading expeditions over the Himalayas, through the Amazon, down the Blue Nile, across the Gobi Desert, always with scientists and aid workers. So working and living in community and providing resources, wells, schools, clinics for the communities, and doing quite rigorous scientific research with scientists from around the world who came with local scientists who never had the privilege of working in their own countries because the resources didn't allow them to go out and do their work. And we came together. That was an amazing experience for me to do that. And again, stories to be told over a long drink another time. I happened then, on the back of leading expeditions, to end up becoming the chief exec of a charity tackling needless blindness globally. There are more people needlessly blind than have HIV. And that meant living in hospitals in southern India initially and discovering how that kind of care can be brought to communities who don't have anything. They don't have the infrastructure, they don't have the facilities, they haven't even got the road system to get them to the hospitals. So I lived in hospitals in southern India, and then with that learning, went out across parts of Africa, places like Angola and Congo and Rwanda, Ethiopia, other parts of Southeast Asia, providing and building services to help people see again. So I became purposeful, a leader suddenly with purpose. I'd never really had or understood what purpose meant. And I promise you, when you see people's eyesight being restored, there is no dry eye in the house. It's just, excuse the pun, amazing, transformative. But I was then 42. As I think some people say that's the answer to the question, what's the meaning of life? 42. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, for those who know that. Anyway, 42, I realized that all my friends and family were married. I was a single bloke doing amazing work, but I wanted to come home. So I resigned. That was hard. I went to say goodbye to the doctors and nurses in southern India because they'd been so helpful and supportive of me. And they said, Simon, there's a man on the hill about 5 hours bus ride away. You should go and meet him because he's quite interesting. I said, right, got nothing else to do. I'd saved up a bit of money. I finally had a teeny bit of savings. I had nothing to go to. So I went on this bus ride and I arrived, can you believe, outside a Zen monastery. I didn't know I was going there. It was a Jesuit monk, Zen master called Amasami. I walked in. He said, you can stay as long as you want, up for 2 years. I was like, I don't want to stay for 2 years. But I stayed for 2 months, $5 a day, earned my keep by doing an hour of work in the monastery. And I had to do 8 hours of meditation a day. I had a month of silence. It nearly killed me, but it didn't. And I got through it. And it was rather amazing. And excuse me as you see me moving a bit, but I had some quite powerful experiences in that monastery, including energy moving through my body, which still does. So when I talk about these things, my body moves. So I apologize if you feel like you're on a boat when you're watching me. My poor children, stop moving, Dad. Anyway, that gave me a clue, I think, to a bit of what Luke and Sharon are speaking about, which is getting out of my busy head and the sort of craziness of a conversation that's either in the past or in the future, and becoming more present and realizing that when I'm present, actually there's nothing else. And it's literally like taking, for me, the analogy I would say is like having a sort of triple espresso of energy. I just drink it down and I actually feel like I'm connected back into what's in front of me, whatever is showing up. And I didn't want to go and run on the business, but suddenly I had not just purpose, but I had a sense of connectedness to life that I'd never felt before. And I ended up becoming part of an organization called Leaders Quest, another not-for-profit, which over a couple of years, I then became the joint managing partner with a couple of amazing women. And we took senior leaders away on experiential journeys to challenge the existing mindsets. So I would use the backdrop of challenge and drama around the world, both with commercial leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, and think about our role. How do we build wise, compassionate leadership and raise and deepen consciousness, Sharon? And that led me to a conversation within myself, which was, how does consciousness, energy, and technology come together to create tipping points for change? Because I noticed when people felt they were growing, expanding, and deepening their consciousness, actually their perspective shifted, which meant that they had a chance to notice life differently and tune in differently. And with tech, how do we scale that and bring it out in the world? Which is how Sarsen and Light were born. I'm happy to talk a bit about that in a minute, Neil, and explain what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. So I want to move on to Kath now, and I know Kath as a workaholic. You know, we work together on the CMI Wales board, and you know, it's amazing what you do, Kath, in terms of, you know, in your corporate life as well as the businesses that you have going in West Wales. But I look at let's say your industry, or the industry that you major in today, particularly in terms of hospitality, as a pressure cooker. You know, we all watch Hell's Kitchen and things like that. It must be really stressful. So can you maybe share some of the unique challenges, I think, that individuals working in the hospitality industry face, and when it comes to mental health and wellness? How do you cope with it?
Yeah, thank you for that, Neil. So I'm going to actually twist that around. I'm going to do a pitch for why actually hospitality is really, really good for mental health.
Okay, that's
good. Basically, I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, we all know about COVID. We know how it hit any form of customer-facing business. You know, dramatically, fast, deep, all that stuff's changed the world. But when you step back and you think about sort of total wellness, you know, both physical and mental wellness, and how they sort of interconnect with each other. The world of hospitality is actually great. So, you know, I always go back to the NHS define, you know, well-being and what you can do around well-being in 5 areas: around connecting with people, being physically active, learning new skills, giving to others, and you know, paying attention to the moment. So mindfulness. So some of the great stuff that Sharon and Simon are working on. And, you know, we work in an environment where you can bring all those things together. And I can tell you right now that if you're working in a good team, in a busy restaurant, then you can think of nothing else than what you're doing in the minute. It's fun. You're part of a family, in effect, and you're connecting with people every second. And it's one of those jobs, again, that when you go home at night, you've got a great sense of having really done something. You know, you've given joy to the kids' parties. You've, you know, created great experiences for people in the moment. So it's actually very, very fulfilling. And it really is an environment where you can take people that maybe are struggling for whatever reason in life and give them the skills and start to build them up and heal them. And that's what we try and do with things like our apprenticeship program, where you put structures around learning and growth and put them into supportive teams and then let them go. And I think it's a brilliant sector for that. And it's one of the reasons I sort of do a fair bit of petitioning with various government bodies and so forth, not to do down this sector and actually to realise what opportunity it brings to help people and get them back into the workplace. And I think sort of generally from a work perspective, if you think about it, we've got this sort of schism really, where there's people like me. You mentioned the word workaholic and I smiled because I don't see that as a bad thing. I do work crazy, you know, but I thrive on it. I enjoy that. And all my life, you know, I've been that sort of typical chucking myself all into different things in the work environment. And it's given me more energy. It's never been a problem for me at all. Obviously, COVID, you've got a complete different perspective on the world. And coming out of COVID, we're now seeing this sort of pathway where people of my generation have had a work and a career in a very different way to people coming through now. And, you know, there's a lot more people out there that need help. You know, they might have dropped out of school or dropped out of education. You know, we call NEETs, so not in education, training or employment. And they need pathways and they need help. And also people who are very, very capable that maybe haven't developed the muscle memories to actually perform. So again, when I think purely on a sort of, you know, how do you get performance out of business and how do you help people at the same time, they are very interlinked. And I do believe that with the right structures and supports in place, you know, the heart and the head that's been mentioned, infiltrated through everything we do in business, we can actually help to get generations through and be more productive. And I think that productivity is absolutely critical, and that's a huge risk for the whole country at the moment. And I think, again, we've got a role to play in business. But again, my pitch for the sector is I think we're a great environment to do that. We've got some incredible success stories, which, if we get the chance, I'll share a few later. But I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks, Kath. And there's a thread that came out of that for me that I want to put back, probably particularly to Luke and Simon. I think is that Sharon touched on the importance of mentors, and you were talking about a support infrastructure in the industry. I didn't necessarily feel that coming through from Luke and Simon. So if you can maybe share, a bit more regarding your early career, let's say, did you have a support structure in place? It seems like you figured things out yourself and you kept moving on. So maybe you were more of a leader of yourself as opposed to a corporation helping you. Would that be true?
From my side, yeah. Cheers, Simon. From my side, I've always been kind of told that I was a born leader, so I'm quite independent. However, I did hit that glass ceiling. So I got to a point where I was getting in my own way, in my own mindset, and then in terms of support network and obviously specialists within their field. So I've had mentors, I've had multiple coaches. I've got multiple coaches right now. They've unlocked that and bridged that gap on where I am right now and actually who I'm actually capable of. And that has come to a lot of what this conversation's been actually really powerful about. I mean, Sharon shared it, Simon shared it, even Kath spoke about it, is the element of being rather than constantly doing. So I've had to slow down, because if you said to me, Luke, run through that brick wall, I will run through that brick wall if that's going to get me what I ultimately want. So I do thrive off team and support network, 100%.
Simon?
I'd say I didn't know what I didn't know in my 20s. I wasn't very good at listening. And people, I think, believed in me so much, they thought I knew more than I did. So I don't feel I was particularly good at having or bringing alongside me people to help. That changed in my 30s as I think about my work out in the field on these expeditions and running the charities. I was learning the whole time, and I was really lucky to find people who just wanted to help me. And what I learned then was to listen. I hadn't been a good listener. And suddenly I realized that if I listened, there was so much more I could learn and then use that to help other people. So I became a much better listener in my 30s and early 40s. And then since then, like Luke, actually, I've been building a lovely group of people around me who just, I know, care for me and want me to succeed. And I fall back on them, and they're across the breadth of my life. It's like, I think anyone who has something to do in the world needs a team around them to support them. We all do. And I certainly have that now. But in my 20s, I was very much, I can do this. Idiot that I was.
Youth wasted on the young time.
Yeah, exactly. Only I knew then.
And by the way, I'm happy for you to talk across each other if you wish. But maybe just leading on from that then, Sharon, I think, we worked together in CH Hill, and I found, well, from my own personal career, that was probably the best place I ever worked, because we were not only accountable, but we had a very caring culture. And, we started that off probably by emphasizing the importance of safety of employees as individuals. And then that morphed into more of a holistic health and wellness program. Do you see the same in all corporations? So, you're now working with someone else. Are there similar themes in the large corporations?
Yeah, so I think I agree with you. I would say that the culture of the organization we used to work with was ahead of its time, really, in so many ways: diversity, inclusion, health and safety and well-being. And I think the great thing about that organization was it wasn't just about doing well-being through a series of initiatives. It was actually really embedded in the culture and the belief system, and actually just how everybody treated each other. It was an employee-owned culture, so I feel sometimes maybe that helped to drive that. It was almost like we're all in this together, and it was a massive organization, wasn't it? Over 20,000 people globally. Yep. But it had from the top down such a caring culture with behaviours. I would say in the industry that I'm in, which is obviously construction and engineering, lots of the organisations now are actually including wellbeing alongside health and safety. Mace, I would say, is probably an industry leader in that, and they're really committed through their business school to teaching other supply chain members with that same health, safety and wellbeing piece. It's stuff we take to our clients. I think Mace in particular, they're really, really strong in the mental wellbeing space. I'm not sure if all of you on the call are aware, but the UK construction industry has 2 suicides a day in the UK. And so mental wellbeing is something that Mace has got its arms around and is really trying to change awareness around that. There's lots of mental wellbeing initiatives that they run as an organisation. And so from that perspective, I find Mace in particular really inspiring. In fact, on the back of this, and through my own experience of men and mental health in particular, it's another startup that I'm actually involved in where we're looking at providing inspiring resources to support men in particular in the space of mental health, because I don't think there are that many resources out there for men in particular. And that's a platform called Momentum Men, which we hope to launch in January. So I think it's all about wellbeing, but particularly this mental wellness. I think that's starting to get legs as well and to run. But I think the key thing is, for any corporate, it shouldn't just be around being an initiative. It really needs to be embedded in the culture and in the way people and leaders from the top down really treat the staff. So I think we've still got a way to go generally across corporates, but we're heading in the right direction.
No, thanks, Sharon. So Simon, now with the mix that we have as well, is that we have the hybrid office, and a lot of us are working from home, and we visit offices. How do we then watch out for people when we're not always with people? It's quite a different situation, I think, when you have an inclusive environment, let's say in an office, and your door's open and you can have a chat. But if you're at home, I'm just wondering if the creation of a product that you have called Light, I think it's called, do you think that digital platform can help in that environment? Because there are no boundaries for that.
Yeah, no, I do. I think, to answer your question, there are a number of layers always. We've lost the coffee machine conversation, the chat, the check-in, those slightly sort of, not when we're intensely working at our desk on the phone, on Zoom, but actually just passing by someone and saying hi. That's gone. And it's, I think, really important. And we, at least in Sarsam, we are encouraging ourselves to make sure we have those little check-in moments with each other, just small pockets of time each week where we don't speak about work. We just say hi, have a coffee together, even if we're on TV, on a screen. Yeah. To Light, look, it ties in so much with what we're talking about here. My sense is that we all need to understand why it's important to have a practice of some sort. It's really hard to connect. Some people feel either burnt out or exhausted, anxious, fearful. That's a common conversation. And I keep hearing it. Others, it's like, I really want to grow a bit, but I don't quite know how. How do I expand who I am, my sense of consciousness? And others too are like, okay, I'm a really good problem solver, but how do I answer the problems of today without the same way of thinking? How do I expand my perspective and grow my horizons? Those seem to be 3 buckets. And I think those buckets can all create problems for people if they're not in some way spoken to or heard or acknowledged. And what we're trying to do with Light is say, look, if we all had a practice we did every day. Sharon's talked about her amazing yoga and meditation practice and what she's bringing to the world. But if we all had a practice, and there are so many types of practices, it's not just the beautiful mainstream ones that we're discussing here, but the likes of gratitude and listening and nature and food preparation and swimming and running and all the things that we do. And the point of a practice is, can we make it a habit? Can we do it daily? Because if we do, what happens is this busy computer up here that's just making a noise the whole time is quieting down. And then we become more present. If we become more present, we reconnect to ourselves and to each other. If we reconnect, we're much less likely to fall down the path of feeling highly anxious, low mood, depressed. Those things, of course, they still can happen, but if we can be preventative for ourselves upstream, we've got ability to manage before we fall into this deeper problem.
And
so
some-
life is all about being upstream, really.
Yeah, Simon, just on that point, I think that's a really good one because, again, I've always been very lucky in life. I've never really had health problems. I've always worked and got big energy off that. But the reality is, I've always seen myself as a bit invulnerable. But in life, something will hit us at some point. All of us, you can't avoid that. I've got to the awful menopause stage. My parents are getting desperately old, dementia, all these sorts of things. And you suddenly realise that you can't control things the way that you thought you could. And, at some point that will reach every single person on this call. Everybody on the planet will have some terrible grief to deal with or something out of control. And as you say, if you've got habits or you've got things built in already, it can help that horrible crash moment when something does happen.
So it can catch you.
It will happen to all of us. Yeah.
Spot on.
So Luke, maybe as a response to that, in a way, and some of the clientele that you get through your door, are these issues that people are seeking help, and that's something that you provide?
Yes, 100%. I think coming through my own experience, the relatability factor of being overworked, stressed, again, noise in the brain, jumping on the shiny objects, shall I do this? People telling me to do that, and just going all in on stuff and not actually slowing down. I find that, generally speaking, the people that I work with on a private basis, it's the listening. I mean, when I have coaching conversations with them, it's literally 10% I'm talking and I'm 90% listening. I think they've never had a space where somebody's just held it for them, and that they've been able to really open up on a deeper level, get asked better questions as well. It's the depth questions. It's not just the how are you? It's maybe repeating it again and elaborating on it more and just pausing and holding back. I think in today's world, I mean, it gets brushed off. I'm talking from a male perspective here, because we did a National Peak Challenge this year for a men's mental health charity and his man's club. They're doing really great work. And I think for me, suffering from depression as well, just feeling lost and nobody understanding. It's the understanding part, I think. With football, all my friends had gone on to careers and I was a bit disconnected on. They just had that status of me, like, Luke's going to be a professional footballer. Remember me when you're famous, And for me, that was a lot of pressure. And I think I just exploded. I had no one to talk to. So I feel the element of, yes, coaching, mentoring, just somebody externally that can listen to your problems, I think, is invaluable in any workplace, corporation, business leader, entrepreneur, solopreneur, any status is paramount.
I really wish we had more time, and I can see a bit of a reminder coming up here. But I think before we go into the audience questions, is there, from each of you, is there maybe a top tip or a takeaway, to help you as an individual, but also, to elevate performance in the office? And if I may start with myself, I think, and the style that I've always maybe brought into an office, and Sharon can be the judge of this, I guess, but I think I've always practiced more of a servant leadership style. I'm a humble person. I embrace diversity, inclusivity, and I try and create that positive company culture. And I think when you've made that, from my own experiences, that anyone in the office can come up to you, and if they feel you're not well, or if you're stressed, they will actually come up and say, "Are you okay, boss?" And I think when you've reached that stage, then you know that you've got the right culture in the office. So that's my starting point. If I can maybe just start with you then, Kath.
I would probably say just getting to know yourself, so you can be honest with yourself and recognize what's good stress and what's bad stress. Because again, good stress is about sort of building positive muscle strength, both in the way you are physically, but also how you think. So, building up your positive well-being is not about hiding from difficult things. You have to challenge yourself to build up levels of resilience and build your capacity for dealing with things. But I think understanding when your energy is good and not so good. So how can you recognize what's good stress and what's bad stress?
Luke?
For me, don't be afraid to fail. I think it's as simple as that. I held back on my capabilities by thinking of every single scenario of what if I can't do this, I can't do that. I just raised my hand, jumped in.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sharon.
I think it's just check what thoughts are going through your head. I think we all have that mindset. Well, I don't know if it's just my generation of, I've got to work late to get this job done. I have to work really hard to be seen to be successful and get that promotion. I have to keep up with my colleagues. And I think it's taking a step back and saying, is that really true? And actually, how do I want to live my life? What choices do I want to make? What boundaries do I need to set for me to show up as my best self in the office? And actually, even if everybody else is behaving in a different way, that they're working a lot faster, if you choose to work a bit slower, to work from a place of compassion, guarantee you will find other people in the organization who resonate that will be drawn to that. And actually, you'll start to have an impact on the teams that you're working with. So I think it is possible to create a different way of being, to question how you are being, to create a different way of being, and actually to influence change by just showing up in a different way in the office from that place of compassion, really, and just a gentler way of being.
Simon?
No, I love that, Sharon. Actually, I'll build on that. I think not for intuition to not be a happy accident. What I mean by that is that I think intuition, when we listen to it, is connecting into the bigness of life. Something is more than just us there. And we often do it by accident, in the shower, washing up, driving a car, because this isn't getting too noisy. So if you can, what do you need to do to connect to yourself so that it becomes more regular, that voice? Because that's the voice of compassion. That's the voice of actually creating your own boundaries and listening to who you are and showing up the best version of you. And it's there within you. We've all got it within us. So how do you find it? What do you need to do to not make it a happy accident? Because it's always there.
Thank you, Simon. We've got a couple of questions that came in advance that I'm going to start with here, and I'll look in comments shortly. But please do get your questions into comments so we can get the speakers to reply. There's a question from Andrea. With the current challenges facing organizations, e.g. cost of living, staff turnover, and what practical initiatives would you suggest for the employer, especially thinking of SME culture? I think probably, Kath, that's probably a good one for you, but all panelists, please chime in.
Oh, yeah. Well, firstly, I mean, communicating doesn't cost very much. So I think, building the connections between all parts of the organization, we don't talk about top or bottom or anything like that. There isn't that sort of thing these days. But I think, again, if you can create those networks across the organization and, people then start to understand the direction of the organization, what the shared mission is, and just have that chance to connect. So, with your manager's manager, how it works, just making sure you break down hierarchies and communicate right the way through the organization as often as possible.
Does anyone wish to add to that?
I think, again, what doesn't cost is building relationship rather than just exchange within organizations. If we build relationship, there's a sort of invisible knitting that happens that helps people feel connected. And if we can build on that alongside that, Neil, the sense of why am I here? What's the purpose? If you can connect into my reason, my why, alongside feeling held, then yes, there are such challenges with the cost of living. But I suspect turnover changes because people feel they want to stay if they can. Yeah. They feel held there. They feel listened to, empowered.
Simon, can I just jump in quickly on that? There was a phrase that kept running through my head when you were saying all of that, which is task is mask. So again, as managers, we get told, drive the task. And it's a really convenient way of avoiding some of the things you've been talking about that might feel a bit awkward at first. But, really getting to know people and the relationships and the energy lines and all that good stuff. So yeah, sorry to jump in, but it kept running through my head as you were saying it.
Kath, I took a very senior team of leaders away once to a part of Africa, and one of the leaders there turned to me and said, "Simon, what mask do I wear today?" Imagine, and I think we all have this challenge. How do we show up? But imagine if we can let that go and really relate to each other, the difference within an organization, to your point, even with the costs, this is something that's human, common humanity.
Thanks, Simon. So we have a question here also from Kelly. Are employer well-being initiatives creating a passive influence on personal well-being strategies and behaviors? What impact has effective workplace wellness had on retention, new talent and mature talent? I think that's another one to start with you, Kath.
Oh, well, again, I mean, it's just leading what we've just said. I mean, if you create an environment where people want to be and they want to spend their time, then, you know, they're going to stay with you. So it really is quite that simple. You're trying to create an environment that people actually want to be in. So, you know, rather than I'm going to work and then that's a different entity within my life and I switch on, switch off, it's more something that you enjoy and you get purpose from and you're pulled into. So I say work is good. We should see work as a really good, positive thing. And anybody that's not in work, I would suggest they're more vulnerable to wellbeing challenges. So getting into work and providing work is a good thing.
Good point. Anyone wish to add to that one?
Yeah, I think for me, it's making sure that any initiatives are in parallel with actual behaviours and the way that we show up and we treat our team, we treat colleagues, you know, and just remembering, just check in, ask people how they are doing, give them the permission actually to be vulnerable and actually say, today I'm not doing so great, or this is what's going on for me outside of work, or actually I might need to not be able to deliver on that assignment this week because I've got too many other pressures going on. And I think sometimes as leaders, we have to share those vulnerabilities with our teams. And actually in taking a step back sometimes ourselves, it gives our teams permission to do the same. And I think that creates a bit of psychological safety as well for people, to have that permission to kind of look after their own personal well-being as a behavioural thing in addition to the initiatives that the organisations are running.
No, thanks, Sharon. And we have another question here from Louise as well. How do we create an environment that promotes well-being where the culture of your organisation constrains you? Maybe I'll throw that over to, again, you, Sharon, potentially, and Luke, if you've got anything to offer on that.
I think I go back there to that example that I gave you of just showing up as the way that you want to be and you want to be treated in the office. So I know that, and you will know this, Neil, from our personal dialogue outside of this call, that, you know, I work in construction, which has its own culture, which, you know, there's a lot of pressure in that environment right now. And I'm doing a lot of this yoga stuff outside of work and all my holistic things, which I've been a bit shy actually about bringing into the office. And, you know, there's actually a bit of a clash of cultures of those two parts of the way that I live my life. And I was on a call with an organization called Conscious Consulting earlier this year. And I said, well, how do I bring the two together? They're so different. And they said, by just showing up as you want to be, take the part of who you want to be from the stuff that you're doing outside of work and just show up as that person in work. And they said, and before you know it, you'll find the other people within the organization that resonate with it. And I'm doing that now. We're establishing a network of people within the organization who share my view, who share my passions, my interests, and actually share the belief that just by showing up differently with a place that's a bit gentler, a bit kinder, more compassionate, asking everybody how we're doing, listening, and it does create that ripple effect of goodness, I think, that starts to have an impact on the teams that you touch. So that would be how I would answer that question.
Anything to add to that one, Luke?
I think that was a great explanation, Sharon. I can relate to a lot of that. I think a lot of business leaders that I have conversations with is if you was to strip their business away from them, like today, right now, they actually don't know who they are. So I think it's that actual personality traits, what they enjoy doing outside of the workplace. I think it's really important to be able to openly communicate on like what you actually enjoy doing. Like, I think it's like all work, no play. Like there's no play, there's no connecting with nature, there's no maybe going away from social media devices, switching off your phone and not touching your emails for 24 hours, whatever it may be. I think if whoever's the leader or the person that can stand up and be that authentic self, say, hey, I've got a boundary that I've put in place, it's working really well for me. I think people then go, oh, maybe I might try that. And it's infectious and it spreads. And people then do start, as there's people like to follow. I think that's when then you can start to create that like-minded culture, which then allows people to open up more.
Thanks. And there's a couple of questions in comments, and this is one actually from what I would maybe say as a practitioner. So probably Luke or Simon, you could probably respond to this one. So this is from the Grange Spa. Okay, we are a wellness venue and we are yet to explore corporate options. Does anyone have any suggestions as to how we can begin to enter the corporate marketplace and let them know what we have to offer? And as a follow-on, do you have access to any reports on statistics relating to the workplace wellness? So this is a company wanting to maybe enter the space, of which you certainly have.
I certainly have access to some statistics. I could be helpful in trying to find those and supporting you with that. I'm sure Sharon and Luke do too. As far as entering it, I think you've probably got a body of people who are using your services from the locale. And no doubt some of those people have commercial jobs and work within organizations. So perhaps that's the first place to start. They like what you do, I hope, and are no doubt enjoying the services you provide. So communicating with them and saying, how could we work with you within your organization, within your, often I think it's like concentric circles. Start with what you have. You have a network, build from that and build out, learn what the needs are. If we can knit ourselves into the local community, you're more likely to get local businesses to come and share your services. So what can you do to contribute into the community alongside ask the community to find you? Often find that's the way of helping build relationship too. So that'd be the first things that spring to mind. Play with your strengths. And no doubt you've got some lovely people attending and doing things with you who want to be your fans and talk about you within across the breadth of their life, like Sharon was saying, and just now, how do you become that across the breadth of someone's life so they can be proud to bring it into their workplace?
Yeah, and there's another one here from Martin Hughes, actually. Does anyone have experience of well-being for the well-being managers? In this job and my last, I'm responsible for staff welfare, but there's no structure redundancy for when my well-being is not good.
I've got it's probably a question back from Martin, actually, or just a thought. I would imagine that you must have a line manager yourself within the business. And I think, again, it's building a relationship with them, because it'd be different across all businesses. But sometimes when you look at a wellbeing initiative and you look at costing it out across a business, I don't know, like duvet days, whatever it might be, you start to scale it and the numbers become awful. And so you end up sort of not deciding to do, say, a company-wide initiative. But if you've got a relationship with your line manager and they know you and they know what's going on in your life, a bit like all the conversations we've been having so far about connectedness, then they'll just work with you on a one-to-one basis to work out what works for you. So there might not be, say, a corporate policy about something, but on a one-to-one local level, the flexibility should be there, and they should work with you to work your work pattern out to basically whatever's going on for you in your life. So I think it's, if you are struggling, it's about building that relationship with your line manager and working with them to help you work flexibly.
No, thank you, Kath. So I think we're almost up, and I really just want to use this moment now to actually thank all the speakers for a terrific job. And if anything, we probably didn't have enough time. I think your personal journeys in the beginning, so inspiring. And as you said, Simon or Sharon, you could go on and talk for hours probably, and we'll all listen to you. So maybe that's for a future call. But again, I just want to personally thank you for a great job. And when I look through the comments as well, there's a lot of people that in there are resonating with your comments. So you're certainly on point, and I just wish to thank you for that.
Pleasure. Thank you, Neil.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to join today.
So back to you, Michael, I think.
Great. Thank you so much, Neil, and to our excellent panel for a very insightful and inspiring discussion this afternoon. So thank you all. And to our viewers, please do stay tuned to hear more about CMI membership. And thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Don't forget, as a CMI member, you can find the latest management and leadership insights at managers.org.uk. If you're not yet a member, join our community to discover CMI Confidence with on-demand resources, our network of mentors, and industry-leading accreditations.